Adonis Peguero is a well-known fighter in his small town outside Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic's capital. The 20-year-old dreams of one day representing the land of his birth in competition. But because of an uncertain future following a government effort to register those of Haitian descent, he may never get the chance. Adonis's parents came to the Dominican Republic from Haiti years ago. All of the children were born here, but only 2 of Adonis's brothers and sisters have a Dominican birth certificate or ID. Adonis doesn't. Without those documents, Adonis, like thousands of others, finds his life on hold.
Es de gran preocupación que ya cuando uno tiene su sueño, ¿verdad? Y uno quiere alcanzar un logro mayor que lo que ha alcanzado, que por falta de los documentos, ese sueño se le termina.
6 months ago when we were here last, this was the scene in the capital. Undocumented workers trying to register themselves as required by the government. Most were of Haitian descent. But others born in the country had been caught in the confusion of another registration program. These Dominicans of Haitian background were effectively stripped of their citizenship by a 2013 court ruling unless they have a Dominican parent. According to the UN refugee agency UNHCR, some 138,000 of those people are unregistered. Human rights groups like Amnesty International describe them as stateless, effectively living in limbo, a description rejected by the Dominican government.
Estamos bien.
When we last met activist Epifania Charles, she was advising families in rural areas about the government programs. Many found them complex and expensive. Now she's trying to get the answers for all those without official documents and who live in fear of being deported to Haiti. Yolanda Alcino's family are among them.
Preferiblemente.
Yolanda has identity documents, but some of her 9 brothers and sisters don't, a common problem in Dominican families of Haitian descent.
No pueden estudiar por falta de documentación. Pueden encontrar un trabajo, pero son trabajos, son un trabajo difícil, construcción, cultivar la caña, picar la caña. No pueden tener un seguro médico, no pueden ahorrar en el banco, no pueden porque no tienen documentos. No pueden declarar a sus hijos.
Yolanda's trying to secure a future for her siblings. In a desperate bid to remain in the Dominican Republic, 2 of them, Franklin and Jenny, took the extreme step of trying to register as foreign workers, despite being born here. Jenny says there's no word on her application. If they succeed, they'll initially be allowed to stay for 2 years. Epifania takes us to other families nearby. It's a familiar tale. No news about their efforts to enroll in the government's program, despite frequent calls and visits to government offices. That is, when they can even afford the trip. Everyone here is on edge. All of them know someone who's been stopped by immigration officials and asked for their documents, or someone deported without warning, sometimes without their children. Epifania says now more than ever, anyone who looks Haitian feels discriminated against, intimidated, so perhaps they will give up and leave the country on their own.
Mira, es un riesgo. Hay un miedo total con todas las personas que no tengan, tanto con varios grupos. Puede pasar hasta con dominicanos, que teniendo su documento, pero son de piel negra y salen a dar una vuelta o salen a algo. Y lamentablemente el caso migración lo apresa y se lo llevan.
Sí. Cuando me subieron en la camioneta.
Hera Luis thought he was safe when he registered this year as a foreign worker, but he wasn't. Hera was recently picked up and put in the back of a truck after he'd forgotten his ID at home. He managed to get a message to his wife, who brought it to the police station. It was a close call.
Yo sentía mal, dijo, bueno, si la mujer no me trae el documento, me voy a sentir mal porque y me van a llevar a un sitio en Haití que yo no sé porque yo no tengo cuarto ni nada, sucio.
Hera has lived in the Dominican Republic for 25 years, and his children were born here. The government says thanks to its plan, hundreds of thousands of foreign workers like him now have formal status.
Addresses, the details,
But some who've studied the government programs say not enough was done to help those never registered, those tens of thousands who human rights groups describe as stateless, who feel their nationality is being taken away.
They, to some extent, distrust what's happening and are unwilling to come forward when they are informed about the situation, because quite rightly they don't see why they should be made to register as foreigners in the land where they were born before potentially being naturalized in 2 years' time.
The Dominican Republic and Haiti have long had a close economic relationship. For generations, Haitians have crossed the border, providing cheap labor for their island neighbor. But relations between the two nations have been marked by periods of violence. It's not unusual to hear some Dominicans complain of a Haitian invasion. While the Dominican government has been heavily criticized by international human rights groups, many Dominicans support the registration efforts.
Que si ustedes dan un paseo por la ciudad y por el país, no por la ciudad, porque en los campos tenemos mucho, estamos
llenos,
repletos de haitianos indocumentados y documentados.
Cuando nos vimos abrumados por la cantidad de haitianos, hubo que crear unas leyes para que ellos, si querían pertenecer y trabajar en nuestra tierra, pagaran sus impuestos.
Government officials admit that the programs have had their problems, but they say the estimates of those now living in limbo are questionable.
Thousands of people who didn't have access to their documents as Dominicans that now have access to these documents. We understand that people are concerned that some people could have been left out of the process. We understand that, and we are trying to put in place mechanisms to try and find these people and bring them into one of the categories that we've created. So I think the magnitude of the problem is not as it is being portrayed.
But for Adonis Peguero, there's no sign of resolution to his uncertain status. He says he knows he belongs in the Dominican Republic, and fortunately, so far, immigration officials haven't begun detaining people in his neighborhood. For now, his focus is on his boxing. He's determined to stand his ground and fight.
En realidad ese es el sueño, ser como un campeón, darle poder un triunfo y poner la bandera en alto.
David Mercer, Al Jazeera, Dominican Republic.